Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have an overview of the blue star deck from the One Piece card game. We finally have the full list after having most of it for weeks. They spoiled the last couple cards today, so we're doing a review of that. We did the green one yesterday, so please check that one out as well. And I do want to shout out the Nami Piece TCG Facebook page as well as the OnePieceCardGame.dev website for having these English translation images for us. So I really do appreciate that. Make sure to check them out and support them as well. I couldn't do this video without them. And as well as, if you guys like my content, please consider using the subscribe button or hitting the like button on this video. We're going to have a lot more One Piece content in the next couple weeks, including I'm going to be going to Anime Expo this weekend. I'm going to do some blue versus green star deck videos, as well as a live stream. My first One Piece card game testing live stream will happen on this next Friday. So please consider hitting the follow buttons on the respective sites, and let's just get into this review. So we have this leader. It is Crocodile. He's a 5k with 5 life with the standard for all of the star decks. Active main, Dawn -4. Once per turn, return one character with a cost of 5 or lower to its owner's hand. This is an okay effect, I'd say. One thing for sure is that in Dragon Ball Super, it has the same kind of color identity where you return cards to your opponent's hand instead of like destroying them or KOing them. They also have been doing a return to bottom of deck recently as well. But I think returning to hand in this game is a little bit more impactful, especially since there's the thing. One, not all of the cards have counter or like combos like Dragon Ball Super, so that's impactful. But there's also summoning sickness. That's probably the biggest thing. So even though they can play it just next turn anyways, I think the fact that they won't be able to swing. They spent like 5 energy to play, or 5 Dawn to play this card, and then you used 4 to put it back into their hand. They're feeling bad. Now it is Dawn -4, so you have to return the cards back into your Dawn deck. But later in the game, when you're about to max out on your Dawn anyways, I could see this being a good effect for that. And we'll have to see. The only other thing about this effect in kind of returning cards to hand is that it's a kind of short solution, and a lot of times I feel like compared to Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Super and Digimon, you have really big hand sizes in that game. There's a lot of cycle in Digimon because you do a lot of digivolving, you draw for that. In Dragon Ball Super, you get a lot of card draw, especially since most leaders draw every time they swing, which doesn't happen in this game. So I think a card is more valuable in this game than it is the other 2 Bandai games. So returning it to hand so they can have things to do in the next couple turns can be kind of impactful, and we'll kind of have to see from that. And obviously, if you recycle their on-play effects that they want to do anyways, that could be kind of bad. But so far, a lot of the good effects in this game are based on swinging with having Dawn, and so if you can delay that for a turn, that can be really good. So starting off, we do have the vanillas. I kind of said this in the green one. I think the 3-cost and 4-cost vanillas are actually kind of good for the meta that we're probably starting with set 1. They seem to be pretty good for their cost. The 1-cost is pretty bad. I don't think it's worth the investment, and the 2-cost is fine. Probably like run 1 or 2 if you don't have anything better to run, but 3-cost is okay. I think being able to be like a 5k base, meaning you can swing on your opponent without having to put any more Dawn underneath, it's good, and like a counter cost of 1 is kind of nice. We do also have the big Crocodile right out the gate. So blocker for 5 cost is not too shabby, especially with the 6k, and then Dawn ×1 when blocking, which is a really interesting keyword. Return up to one of your opponent's cost 2 or lower characters to the bottom of its owner's deck. So you can really prevent them from doing this. And something that's also interesting in this card game too, compared to like some of these other ones, is you can have a 2-cost and you can just put a bunch of Dawn underneath it, and it becomes like a big 8k swing. This will still pop it because it's cost 2 or lower, even though it's like it has a lot of Dawn under it. So being able to have these costs and being able to interact with that, I think, is something a little bit unique for this card game as well, and something to kind of look out to. Like it's just the same thing. Like all of your 1-cost can also just get to finish the game as like a big 10k swing. It's not as uncommon as it is in like Dragon Ball Super, which is kind of interesting. We also do have Gecko Moria, so on play for a 4-cost with 5k. Add 1. The 7 Warlords of the Sea are 1 Thriller Bark Pirates type character with cost of 4 or less, other than Gecko Moria from your trash to the hand. I think this is a fine effect. Any card draw, any cycle in this card game is kind of hard to come by, and so any way to start recycling these cards, I think, is really good. It depends on if how many of these cards exist in here, but I think most of them are one of these two. So being able to get pretty much anything with a 4 cost or less back into your hand, I think is not too shabby for it. So I like this card, especially since I think like the blockers can also get returned with this. So like on turn 5, let's say you blocked, you could play this Gecko, and then for 4, and then for 1 you play your blocker, and then you do this. And again, 5k I think is like a fantastic, like the jump between the power level from 4k to 5k is incredibly big because of the potential to swing on your opponent's stuff. Next up, we do have the Dracul Mihawk. So this is a counter +2. So this is I've been dubbing them the super counters, base, since they do twice as much counter. But 4 cost, Dawn times 1 when attacking, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards from your hand. Just the this is an okay effect. I think the cycle for this is good, and basically a lot of the time when playing this, I'll just end with like a bunch of dead cards in hand, especially if they don't have counter. The fact that you also get to draw the 2 cards first, I think, is impactful. You have a 6k swinging when attacking, since the Dawn times 1 for it. I think this is a good card. This is one that you kind of want to play, and I kind of said this in the green video too. It's going to be interesting to see if they do anything where you can only have X amount of cards with the +2k counters. If they did, I would assume that they do what they do in Dragon Ball Super, and they give them a keyword. And how they work in Dragon Ball Super, they have the super combo keyword, and you can only have 4 cards with super combo keyword in your deck. So we'll see if they do the same thing here. So far, it doesn't look like it. So if you got a bunch of 2k counters, you can definitely run them, as far as I know, but we'll see what happens. We also have the Jinbei Vanilla. It is what it is. We're going to stop talking about vanillas. We have Sentomaru, so a 3 cost 4k. Dawn times 1, active main once per turn for 2. So a lot of investment. You have to pay, like, let's say you do this on turn 3, and then on turn 5, you can essentially spend 3 more Dawn again to play up to 1 cost 4 or lower Pacifica from your deck, then shuffle your deck. So that is kind of good though, because it's technically a draw 1 and play a card for 1 cost less. So I think this is a fantastic effect if it lives, especially since doing the Dawn times 1 underneath it means that it becomes a 5k swing anyways. So which you would probably be doing with this in the first place, unless you wanted to just keep it out here and then just keep summoning these Pacificas every turn. But just the fact that it plays from deck essentially means it's a +1 to just draw the card, as well as you're paying only technically 2 to do it if you're planning on doing the 5k swing anyways. And so I think that's a lot of value from a card like this. So Pacifica, we'll see in a second, it's just the 4 cost vanilla, but I really like the 4 cost vanillas are pretty strong in this game based on my own testing and stuff. So next up we have Trafalgar Law. So this is a 7 Warlords of the Sea and a blocker. So I think that, yep. So you can just have this blocker and then you can bring it back later. So I think being able to recycle a card like this is pretty impactful for the game. So I do like this. I will say having this guy as a 1k blocker seems like you're giving him not as much power as he probably deserves in like the lore sense, but it's what it is. It's what it is. All right, we do have next air 7-drop 7k. It's a Don Quixote do Flamingo. On play, return a cost 7 or lower character to its owner's hand. That seems pretty good in a lot of ways, and especially in the mirror, I can imagine like you can just loop, like you just in a spot where you have to keep bouncing their Don Quixotes do Flamingos back and forth, which is super funny. But yeah, it's not deletion, but the fact that you're able to bounce something big is good. The only difference is it's really matchup dependent again, but on the surface, I think returning a card to the hand is more impactful in this game compared to Dragon Ball Super, where it's generally not very good. I think it's moderately good. I think it's like a kind of like a delay of like a swing almost. It kind of like stuns it, and you have to pay it again. So I think that's kind of good. So I think this is a good card. We'll see if 7 is too much to get there, but we'll see. Then you also have Bartholomew Kuma. So on play, look top 3 cards of your deck and return them to the top or bottom of your deck in any order. And trigger, play this card. You don't get to draw a lot of cards in this game. Like it is very few compared to what I'm used to in Dragon Ball Super and Digimon. And so even though it's just knowledge, it's very good knowledge. If you know what you need and you know what your curve is, and you know you don't have something for your next turn or the turn after that, this is fantastic for finding the cards you need and kind of cycling it. Obviously, you don't get the draw, but still, even for 2 just to play this to get that, I think is kind of worth it. So I'm okay with this, especially since it has the nice trigger. Do this. If it had, I don't think it'd be broken if it had the plus 1k counter, but again, trigger is fantastic for this. You get to just play it for free. You get a 3k as well as you get to get that top of deck stuff. So I think this is a good card. Next up, we have Buggy. It's a vanilla. That's all I'm going to say. And then we have Pacifica. So this, I think this is good, especially since the fact that you can play this from deck for technically 2. And the 6Ks are, these guys are really obnoxious to get rid of too. They're 4 cost and they're 6k, which means that your opponent, your leader, has to invest Dawn into just swinging this to trade with it, as well as it's 4 cost, which means a lot of, like, I'd say like weenie removal is 3 cost or lower. So getting rid of this, or getting this out, I think it makes your opponent have a hard time to get rid of it, and then it just starts doing damage, because every time this swings too, your opponent has to like counter 2 based on their leader, based off at least a 5k leader too. So I think the 4 cost vanillas are good in this game. Next up, we have Bora Hancock. It's a blocker, and then trigger, play this card. I like it. It's, except for it's a 3 cost. That seems kind of steep. I think a 2 cost would have been fine, but it also has counter, so I get it. But yeah, we have a lot of blockers in these lists, and you know, this can also be recycled, I believe, yeah, because it is 7 warlords. So that's fine. And then again, if you can trigger this, it's very good. And the fact that you have a lot of good triggers to play cards already from seeing these, I think is good in a list like this. Next up, we have Marshall Deteach. On play, return a character that costs 3 less to his owner's hand. It costs 4. It's a 4k. This is fine. This is really good if you're going second, because your opponent goes first, they play something that costs 1, and then it's your turn, you play something that costs 2, then they have their turn, they play something that costs 3. It's your turn with 4 Dawn, you just play this, return it back to their hand, and now you're feeling the tempo, baby. So this is okay. Going first, it's not as good because you can't start playing it until turn 3, and then they could have played like a 4 cost, and then you can't get rid of it. So it's kind of weirdly dependent on if you're going first or second, but I think it's an okay card. And then that is all of the characters. We do have 3 events, and unlike the purple and red one, there are no stages for these decks. There are only the event ones. So, but this card seems really good. We'll see if it is, but it's for only 4 costs. You get to return a character with cost 7 or less to its owner's hand. You do go -1 in card advantage, so that is a thing. But like, also being able to, like, your opponent just spent 7 whole cost to get rid of something, to play something, you just bounce it back in their hand. I think that's kind of nice. And then trigger, activate this card's main effect. So it's like a Kakaida's Breath in Digimon. But yeah, if they just swing with one of their characters and they have like 2 more out, you can just return it back into their hand, and then they just have 1 less swing for the turn too. Seems great. I think it's good in the deck. And yeah, I'll definitely I'm gonna guess you're only gonna get 2 of this in the starter deck, but I definitely run this at like 3 or 4. Next up, we have Thrust Pad Cannon, and if you haven't noticed, there's so many triggers that I would say are very good. So it's on a counter for 2, so return a cost 3 or lower character to its owner's hand. This is really good, and this is like a really good reason to not tap out. If you know that your opponent's gonna do something like this, it is also a fantastic trigger ability too. And again, like I'm talking about, a lot of characters, even if they're 3 costs or less, a lot can have the potential to become like a 6, 7, 8k swing that they try to do for game, and then you just activate this counter, and you get, they have to lose not only the character, but all the Dawn that they invested for it in the turn just got negated as well. So I think something like this is good. Again, I'd probably like a 3 or 4. Obviously, it doesn't like give you any inherent counter on the turn, but it seems like it can be like a really good like disruption tool, especially since you kind of get to determine when you do it as well. And then last card of the day, we do have the Love Beam counter. Choose up to one of your leader or up to one of your characters. It gains a plus 4k power for the duration of the battle. Then if you have 3 or less cards in hand, you get to draw 1. So this honestly seems like a really good like late game counter too. Being able to I've found like a lot of times where I have like a lot of Dawn, and I'm like, well, I guess I've got nothing better to do than just put it all under my leader and make a really big swing. So being able to do this to not only give like a plus 4k power for the duration of the battle, but also draw a card in the late game when you would normally have like not only the 2 Dawn to activate this, but also the need to probably have a plus 4k counter. This seems really good. This seems like a good effect, especially like if you can like chain these and like do like 2 for like plus 8k or something. I don't know. This is probably a card I'd add as well. All of these event cards seem good, and in general, a lot of the blue cards just seem like they get so much value. And I think what happens with this deck is it probably falls off a lot in the late game. You're doing a lot of like early game tactics where you're like, well, I have the better tempo, but I don't have a lot of cycle, and my opponent's going to have more cards to do later in the game where I just put all my Dawn under my leader and just swing with it. So I'm excited to test this out. This is my favorite of all of them. Purple is like slightly below this, but this blue one looks super duper fun, and I'm really excited to test it. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know which one of these star decks you guys are most excited to test and play for. Again, thank you to NamiPiece TCG and as well as the One Piece card game dev website for having these images for me to use on this video. I couldn't, again, do this video without them. If you made it this far in the video, hit the subscribe and like button. You must like my content, and look out for some some One Piece stuff in these next couple of days. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time.